Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform where we talk with a variety of teachers, entrepreneurs, spiritualists, uplifters, givers, shakers, and serenaders. Everyone has a lesson to learn and a lesson to share. Let's use our life experiences to enrich someone's heart, mind, spirit, and soul. Through sharing our experiences, we can be a learning inspiration for one another. I'm your host, Chris Levens. Let's welcome today's guest. Today's guest is Lorraine Ball, marketing strategist. After spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee, and channeled into her passion of helping small business owners succeed. Today, this entrepreneur, author, professional speaker, and host of a weekly marketing podcast, More Than a Few Words, brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. As the founder of the Digital Toolbox Club, she helps business owners use internet marketing to grow. And in her spare time, she loves to travel and take photos. Let's give a warm welcome for Lorraine Ball. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. It is so nice to be here.
Yes, thank you for being a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so happy to have you today.
I'm excited for the conversation.
Thank you. Well, we're going to jump right on in. I like to ask all of my guests this first question. I believe that our lives are in spiritual design. Can you share your life layout or blueprint with everyone? How you grew up, where, your family lifestyle?
So I grew up a little bit everywhere. When people ask me where I'm from, I say that I'm from New York because I was born in Brooklyn, but I lived in Jersey and Queens as a child. Little bit of trivia. I lived in Brooklyn. There was a baseball team there years and years ago called the Brooklyn Dodgers, and they defined Brooklyn, but they had moved out long before I lived there. Mm-hmm. But when they left, they tore the stadium down and they put up 5 apartment buildings, and I lived 27 stories above third base.
What?
Now you would think... Yeah. And so you would think that I would have grown up with this appreciation for baseball given where I was, but I didn't. But that sort of anchors where I'm from originally.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I spent a lot of my summers because I had family down on the Jersey Shore. And again, timing is everything. I was there before Bruce Springsteen was singing, so bummer. Okay. But I do know where he played and Asbury Park and that whole area, which he made famous. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I lived in Long Branch, which is sort of the next town over. So
I know. Well, I'm
shore.
from New Jersey as well. I didn't know that.
Are you really?
Toms River, Ocean County. My grandmother used to go to Long Branch for church services and Asbury Park. Yes. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, please go continue.
Yeah. No, see that. Okay. So that's the spiritual connection thing. There are these overlaps. So we were meant to have this conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So, graduated Queens College, I grew up in this interesting blended family because my mom had died when I was young, and my dad married a woman who had a son from a previous marriage. And unlike, I think, a lot of families, once they got married, everybody just looked at it and said, okay, well, that's my grandkids, so the other 2 are my grandkids too. And that's my niece and nephew, so that one's my nephew too. So because of all this blending, I just have this really large extended family. And so, even today, my husband or my kids will say, well, how are we related? I'm like, well, that's my cousin. And they're like, how is that person your cousin? Well, my mom, my dad married his mom, and that's, his dad's brother's kid, it's just what it was. So, so that's kind of cool. I graduated Queens College. I have a degree in elementary education because I come from a family of teachers and social workers. And so those were the two appropriate careers. I taught English as a second language. I think you mentioned that you went to Japan to teach English as a second language. I taught English as a second language in a small development town in Israel for about a year. And that's where I met my husband, who was from Texas. So when we got married, I ended up in Dallas for 15 years. My kids were born there. I still refer to myself as a New Yorker, even though clearly I haven't lived there. And then I got a job offer up here in Indiana. And we moved here with the understanding that it's a 3-year contract. 3 years, I'm out. We can go anywhere we want. I'm coming up on my 30th anniversary here in Indiana, so I don't think I'm going anywhere.
It must have been good. It must have been good then, definitely.
Yeah. Indianapolis is it is a smaller city, and I like the rhythm. Now, don't get me wrong. I still love New York. I love Chicago. I love big cities, but there's something really comfortable about literally being 20 minutes from everywhere. And that's kind of who I am, how I got here. Came for a job, did it for a long time, loved it until I didn't anymore. Had another job for a little while and then decided that I didn't fit. And the only place I was going to fit was something of my own making. So I started my own business in 2002. Sold it in 2019. I'm sorry, sold it in 2021, and have another business. And then I have another business that I spun off at the point that I sold the full agency. There were certain things like the podcast and the online training that didn't make any sense without me, and I didn't really want to sell those. So we spun those off, and I waved goodbye to the day-to-day and kept the things I really liked. And that's where I am now.
Wow. Do you feel satisfied where you are now?
I do. I think the combination of selling the business, which was something that I had started working on before the pandemic, but then overlaying the pandemic and the chaos that created, I really like where I am right now. I like the pace. I like that I have more time to spend with the people that I have really enjoyed meeting over the years. I like that I have more time for the podcast and for conversations like this. And I still have the challenges of the business when I choose to. So it's a good place.
Nice. Definitely. What are a few things that you have learned on your journey to get to where you are today?
I think that I have always approached everything that I have done looking for the lessons. Again, I started life, I was going to be a teacher, and that is still kind of core to who I am. And so every job I learned something that I applied going forward. I think starting with being a teacher, the thing that I learned that has served me well throughout is the ability to take large, complex ideas and break them down. And it's not because your audience isn't as smart as you. It's that your audience, whether it's a room full of children, a room full of adults, or just one person you're trying to get an idea across to, they don't have necessarily that background. And so when you just launch into something, you're launching into it with so much history. And so learning how to break that message down and present it in small bites and in a way that anyone can understand, I think that's the one thing I've learned that has served me well in every job I've ever done and in every interaction I've ever had. I think the other thing that and maybe I didn't learn it. Maybe it's just kind of how I listen to people, but it's learning to listen for the unasked question.
All
You
right
know,
now.
when somebody is talking and you hear the words that they're saying, but there's often a whole second conversation going on. you know and it's going on, and I think this is the thing that's made me so crazy during the pandemic was the not having necessarily the cues of body language to help aid, but you can still hear it in the voice. And even if you're paying attention, if you listen to the choice of words and you really kind of dial in on not just the overlaying message, but what are they really telling you? And learning to listen to that. And it's not to say that people have another agenda. It's that people don't always say everything. And so if you're really going to communicate, you have to learn to listen at two levels. I think the other thing is that I'm very much who I am. I have a little bit of an in-your-face style, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. But I also know that there are times that you have to be who the other person needs you to be until they get comfortable.
Yes.
I spent 5 years selling oil field supply in Texas, and then I spent 11 years in the heating and air conditioning industry. And this was not a place that a woman necessarily was expected. And so, especially in the beginning, I would be, because if I was very in their face right up front, I need to talk to a salesperson. I'm a salesperson. The conversation would have gone nowhere. So, you know what, darling, I'll tell you what, why don't we just go through some questions? There's no salesman available right now. I'll get the information and we would do this dance. And then I would be like, well, let's see. Okay, so you need that. Well, I think the salesman's going to tell you this, and I think the salesman's going to tell you that, and I can, and here's what the price is going to be, and delivery. And by the end of the conversation, I'd be like, now do I have to have a salesman call you back? And, after 5 years of that, everybody knew, the clients knew I was their salesperson, and we stopped playing games. But in that setting, in that moment, that community was not necessarily ready for that. And, and the same thing when I went into the heating and air conditioning industry. And again, there was that initial, they weren't sure, and who I was or what I was going to do. And so I didn't necessarily push everything right up front. But once I was settled in, you got me. This is who I am, guys. And it either works for you, it doesn't. And I think that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed running my own business. There were still times that I kind of dialed it back a little bit, but for the most part, running my own business, getting to a place where I'm like, you know what, this is who I am. I may not be a great fit for your business. That's okay. I'll introduce you to someone else. Well, but you know what? That I'll introduce you to someone else is a great thing, because as a business, not every customer is a great customer for you. And if you act like a dog in a manger and you try to hold on to every single bone, it's going to blow up in your face, because they're not going to be a good customer for you. You're going to hate them. They're going to hate you. Eventually, it's going to go sideways. On the other hand, if you can upfront go, you know what? We're not a great fit. Let me introduce you to my friend Jennifer, because you two are going to get along great. And that person and Jennifer get along well. Then what happens is they have good things to say about me. I talked to Lorraine. Her company wasn't a fit for me, but it might be for you. And she's amazing because she hooked me up with. And Jennifer's happy because she got this client. Well, now when she has a client that isn't a fit for her, guess who she sends it to? Yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are some of my favorite lessons. I got lots.
No, they're good. I wanted to ask about when you breaking it, when you break things down, this is a huge thing because a lot of people talk over people or they make it so difficult to understand that a lot of people are afraid to even ask the questions because they feel like, gosh, I feel dumb if I'm going to ask this. I guess maybe I should know. The fact that you breaking it down, making it easy for is an excellent skill. Is that something that you learned from someone? Is that something that you grew up with in your home? Where did this come from?
Well, remember I said that I was an elementary school teacher.
Oh, okay. It's from the teacher.
And so I think that's where it came from. I also think growing up, I don't ever remember baby talk. And I don't ever remember, even after I got older and I saw, my parents and aunts and uncles, most of my cousins were older than I was. So the conversations were always a little bit more adult. So it was always a little bit of keep up. But if I asked questions, I don't remember anybody ever stopping and making me feel bad about that question. Okay. And so I think I carry that as well. I'm not afraid to say, you know what? I don't get this. You want to back up and explain that? I mean, but again, that's kind of my in-your-face style. But conversely, I don't want ever anybody to feel like they shouldn't ask the question. Mm-hmm. And I do it in my speaking. I also do it in my writing. I had rules. We blogged. Well, I've been blogging, I don't know, for 15, 16 years. But when we were writing blog posts and I'd get a new college kid who was working for me and they'd write this very pretentious blog post because that's what they were writing in school and they thought that's what it was supposed to be. And I was like, no. First off, you have, and I would circle in red. I'm like, look, you have all of these buzzwords and you don't explain them. You can use the buzzword, but the first time you introduce it in a blog post, just parentheses, put a definition next to it. Well, but everybody doesn't know what that is. So let's not make them feel bad, because when people feel bad, if they're reading something or they're listening to you, do you know what happens? People do not stay around.
No, they leave.
They leave. So they're going to leave your article. They're going to stop listening to your podcast. They're going to end the sales conversation. There is no win in sounding smart and superior. I am smart. Okay. Yes, I'm smart. I know stuff. Good for me. That, and my mother used to say that and a nickel will get you on the subway. Because, it's a little more than a nickel.
Right?
Yeah.
No, definitely. You have to just choose the battles. Paying attention to this, being in the moment. As well, you mentioned them just feeling like you're reading the air. The Japanese say they are reading the air, meaning that you can just tell that everything is not being said, or you can feel something is not exactly the way it should be, to being able to pick up on that, like you were mentioning with your clients, and being able to say the things that maybe they haven't mentioned, but you can feel is happening. And that's really being in the moment to recognize that, which a lot of people aren't. So they pass these moments by. But that is also a really fantastic thing that you mentioned that you've learned along your way. Love it.
I'm going to steal that expression because I love that idea of reading the air. And it is, it just has such a nice, it's just such a nice visual way of describing what you're doing.
I agree. It does.
Yeah.
It does. Please take it. Please take it. Please take it. Excellent. Let me ask you, who's around you that keeps you motivated?
Well, my husband, and we've been married 42 years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah. And, so, he's my biggest cheerleader. And it's funny because he and I are similar in certain things and very different in others. And so sometimes, it's a strange kind of support, but I know there's always love underneath it. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of joy when we do things together. My older brother and I are very close, and we probably talk every day, every other day.
Oh, sounds
And
like me and my
so,
sister.
yeah.
Nice.
And we haven't lived in, and like you and your sister, you probably haven't lived in the same place
No, not in a long, long
for
time.
forever and ever, but it doesn't really matter.
No.
And then I have I have this interesting group of friends. 20 long time ago, I wanted to walk on Saturday mornings, and I started inviting friends to join me.
Hmm.
And so every Saturday morning, there's a group of women that go walking.
All
Now,
right. Nice.
over the years, the group has changed.
Hmm.
People have moved, they walk more, they walk less. But the funny thing is that the group over the years evolved, and the youngest members of the group were younger than my daughter, and the oldest members were 10 and 15 years older than I was. So there was a point at which my daughter started walking with us.
Oh,
And
nice.
so every Saturday morning, I walk, and I might walk with one person or five people. And with the pandemic, it shifted. I mean, and as a group, we agreed that there was no problem that couldn't be solved by a group of smart women in 5 miles.
I love it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So keeping motivated, solving problems,
Hmm.
working through joys and traumas and ups and downs with jobs and families and kids, it all happened on the trail.
Wow.
And when the pandemic hit, there was about a month there, and we would do it year round. And if it was cold, we found a place to walk indoors. We made it work.
Hmm.
But with the pandemic, we were like, crap. So I figured out that we could do a mobile Zoom call.
Oh.
And so for 6 months, we walked virtually. Everybody popped we set up the call. Everybody popped their headphones in, and we walked. And the cool thing was, I had a friend who had moved down to Tennessee. Well, she could walk with us now. And I had another friend who'd moved up north. And through the pandemic, we just kept walking. And of course, we're walking in person again now.
Hmm. Nice.
But every now and then, one of my friends calls in, and we just pop the phone out and take them on the walk with us. And so I think that's the other group of people in my life who really keep me motivated, energized, and sane.
I love it.
And sanity is important.
And sane, right? That is important.
Mm-hmm.
That is important. Well, it sounds like you're is most of your time filled up now, or do you have more free time now that you're not doing as much work
Running the
as you were?
business.
Yes.
I have more free time. There are things I like to do that I never made time for before.
Hmm.
I get to the gym almost every day.
Nice.
I did not do that when I was working. I should have, but I didn't. Um, my husband retired this past summer. And so we'll do day trips. And like last week, we did a day trip down to the art museum, and we spent a couple of hours and we wandered around the museum.
Nice.
Now the museum has fabulous grounds, but the weather was crappy. So we'll have to go back and do the grounds.
Hmm.
But I have a hiking app, and it's called All Trails. And I love it because no matter where we are, I haven't tried it outside the US yet, but in the US, any city that we're in, I'm like, oh, there's a hiking trail here, and it's 2 miles or it's 5 miles, and they say it's easy to get to.
Oh, nice.
And so we'll just kind of go. And sometimes we get there, and like I did this with my daughter and my friends. We were looking for a new place. I went, hey, I found this hiking trail. It's kind of off this road and it's not far. And we get there and it was closed because it had been washed out because of all the rain. And it was like, okay, well, there are other things we need to check when I use the app.
But still, yeah, I mean, who would have thought that would have happened, right?
Yeah. But, like we'll do an overnight day trip. And that's one of the things about being in Indianapolis. It's a quick hop down to Louisville, and they have a great theater, and they had a performance of something I wanted to see. and it's 3 hours up to Chicago, and it's Chicago. Nice. So the list of things to do is amazing.
Right.
And Cincinnati's a 2-hour drive, and St. Louis is 4. So, we'll do like an overnight because we can, and if I have a podcast interview, I'll schedule it for the morning and I'll hit the road. And if there's, a conversation like this, as long as I'm staying in a hotel that's got good Wi-Fi, I can do this from anywhere.
Right.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes. That sounds like you living. living. I love it.
It's good. Yeah.
Well, if it brings joy to your heart and puts a smile on your face, and that's all that really matters, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I want to change gears and talk a little bit about your book. So why did you write a book? Tell us a little bit about it, and why did it come to feel that you wanted to put that pen to paper?
So when I started the business, and, when I started the business, it was a very different idea from what it eventually came to be. But what I really wanted to do at the time was do a lot of public speaking and a lot of training, and kind of combining things that I enjoyed, marketing with stand-up training. I'd done a lot when I was in corporate. And one of the things that I kept bumping into is everybody's like, you really need a book. And I was like, well, okay, whatever. Because I don't think of myself as a writer. Now, fast forward, I have written literally thousands of blog posts. And so I was like, okay, back in, 2004, I thought, well, if I need to have a book, what I decided was I wanted to write something that I could use as I was trying to book speaking gigs, as I was making presentations. And so I wrote the Entrepreneur's Notebook. It is a guide to the science of marketing. Mm-hmm. And I used that a lot as I was making presentations. So if I could bring the books with me when I was doing a presentation, I could send the books to potential organizations that were looking for a speaker. But I never really thought of myself as a writer, which is incredibly funny because I went on to write another one called Business Map, which, much like the first one, they are books/workbooks. And then the third one was the Networking Junkie. And that one I actually ended up breaking up into small bits and turning into more of a workbook that you can now download online. When I read great fiction or other business books, I always kind of look at them and go, oh, but because it's a different style. But the books served their purpose, and the people who bought them and the people who got them when I was doing presentations, I have stacks of nice notes going, oh, this was just what I needed. It was really helpful. The audience was definitely small business owners, people who were starting out, who had an idea for a business and no idea about business planning or marketing. And so, again, it was that breaking complex ideas into small pieces. Both books were self-published, and so I still have some left, but they're not, especially the first one, the marketing one. Mm-hmm. While the principles have remained the same, think about what's happened since 2004. When I wrote that book, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram or Twitter. And so the principles of marketing, looking at who your customer is, defining a strategy, all of that is absolutely still valid. Mm-hmm. But there ain't nobody really worrying about direct mail these days.
That is very true. That is very true.
Yeah, especially not in the small business community. Back then, postcards were a thing. These days, I don't know that too many businesses, except for maybe folks in the plumbing industry or HVAC industry, that want to remind you to have your furnace checked twice a year. You really don't get a lot of those postcards coming to your home anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Which might have
changed.
Yeah, which might argue, and I did that for a couple of clients. We actually did do direct mail because we knew nobody else was, and they would stand out
That's
in the
smart.
mailbox. Yeah, but expensive. When you consider how many people you can reach with one email.
That's so true.
It's hard. It's hard to let go of digital. Not impossible, but it's hard.
I feel you. It's true. It's true. Which do you think is more valuable today, social media or using the website? Or is word of mouth still something that's still valuable as well?
Okay, so I'm going to start with everything begins and ends with your website.
Okay.
If you're in business, you have to have a website. And one of the reasons is that social platforms will come and go. Now, it's hard to imagine, given how rooted in our culture right now Facebook is, that it might go away. But, the rise and fall of AOL, MySpace. Everybody talks about LinkedIn now, and nobody remembers Jigsaw or WillieLoman.com or some of the other products that rose and fell. So number one, you've got to build your future on a platform that you own. But the second reason that it's all about your website is going on any social media. And I love social media as a marketing platform, is like going to a singles bar. You're going to meet a lot of nice people. You're going to have some interesting and some weird conversations.
True.
But your end game is to meet that one person that you can bring home. And home is your website.
Nice.
That's where you can have that conversation without distractions. On your website, there are no cute little baby pictures or dancing cats to distract the person. So they work hand in hand. The other piece of it that's really important is the email, your email campaign that surrounds that, because as much as people complain about email, they still open it. And they open it on their phones, and they open it, on their desktop. And even if I open it and close it for that brief moment, and when my email fills the screen on your mobile device, there's nothing else. And so, the purpose of social media is to meet a lot of people, to make positive impressions. Your end goal has to be to get people to sign up for your newsletter or your email campaign or whatever it is and come to your website. Now, you asked about word of mouth.
Yes.
Word of mouth is absolutely critical, but it shouldn't happen by accident. Oh yeah, I have a business, word of mouth business. Great. How many leads do you get from word of mouth every month? Well, I don't know, but it's all, no. You need to know. And you need to know, what are you doing to cultivate more? So one of the things that helps with word of mouth is giving people the messages. Tell people what you want them to say about you. Reward people who do say it. On social media, neighborhood groups, and Facebook has done a really good job of building community groups. My neighborhood, there are 400 homes, and I think we've all gotten a lot closer because of the pandemic, but people are always putting up, hey, I got water in my basement. Everybody in the neighborhood's got houses that are the same age. So who did you use to get rid of the water? I want to restain my deck. Who did you use? And so those questions are happening all the time on social media. If you have a network of not just former customers, but raving fans, one of them is going to go, oh, you need to talk to Mike at Cornerstone Painting. You need to talk to Jeff at Chapman Heating. Oh, I wouldn't talk to anybody but Nate Mishler about that plumbing issue. So you need to be reminding your customers. You need to be thanking them. You need to be cultivating reviews. Reviews on Facebook, reviews on Google My Business, reviews on your website, reviews. Because in this day and age, people are way more likely to believe a well-written review from a person they don't know than the person next door. I mean, it's crazy. It's just, travel. I mean, all the hotels have figured this out and restaurants understand this and every other business should too. And so when I say reward, we developed reward programs where if you referred a customer to my heating and air conditioning company, I sent you a gift certificate for Starbucks. If it was a clean and check, you got a coffee gift certificate. If it was a new system, you might get dinner at a nice restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So, thinking about things like that, rewarding, thanking people. Mm-hmm. When someone makes an introduction, close that loop. So, yeah. And when someone says, and this kind of comes back to the website, oh, yeah, I use Chapman for my heating and cooling. Do you know what that person does? Thanks, Lorraine. And then the next place they go is to the Chapman website. So your website needs to reinforce that message that, hey, your neighbors are already using me. Shouldn't you be?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you do the rewards, is it something that the customer knows about, or it's something that you just do on your side and they're just completely shocked by it? Or do they already know that they're going to get something by doing this?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen it work both ways. One of the most effective campaigns that we ran was for a butcher shop, and he was brand new, and he was going into an area where there were nothing but grocery stores where you bought meat. Like having a butcher shop in this area was unheard of. It was a style of shopping the people were not used to. They were used to going to grocery stores where they could get everything. And he was trying to convince people to come to him for their meat and fish. Mm-hmm. So every time somebody came in, he gave them a card. It was like a little postcard. And he said, look, and he might drop 5 or 6 in the bag. And he said, look, go ahead and give this to your friends. But before you do, put your name and phone number on it. So when the friend came in and said, hey, I've got this card, they saved 10% on their order or 5% on their order. So the incentive for the new person was bring the card in, shop at a 10% savings, right? Mm-hmm. But the person who gave you the card would get a phone call and say, hey, a friend of yours just came in. We put aside a pound of Joe's special grind. Come on in, pick it up, 1 pound of chopped meat.
Wow.
1 pound of chopped meat back then might have been $2.99. It wasn't very expensive. Or, hey, I've got 2 chicken breasts put aside for you. Again, it was like a $2, $3 thing. Why? Because nobody comes to a butcher shop and just picks up chopped meat.
So true.
If they're there, they're going to buy some fish. They're going to buy some other things. And so what it did was it helped for people who were loyal, who were sharing the word. It helped reinforce the habit and gave them a reason to keep coming back in. And it introduced new people.
Wow.
The butcher shop is still there, and it tripled in size over the last 18 years. So I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, he was smart. Mm-hmm. He was definitely smart. What a great idea. Definitely.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for that little tidbit.
Yeah.
Why should business owners reconnect with their inner child?
Oh, I could talk ad nauseum on this. I actually gave a link, and if you want to put it in the show notes, it's to a 10-minute presentation I did on this whole subject of reconnecting with your inner child. And it's really kind of fun presentation. But the short answer is...
It's something that's online that we can access?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah
later on, give
you,
it to me so I can put it in. That sounds great.
Yeah, yeah, it's a YouTube link.
Okay.
Um, but the short answer is that that's where the innovation comes from. That's where new ideas come from, and all a little bit of joy. You know, young children get up in the morning, and if you spend any time with them, you know they sort of burst out of bed and they're like excited for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they know that they're going to see something new and different that they hadn't seen before. And most of us sort of roll out of bed and, hope that there's coffee very nearby to face the morning. And, you wonder what happened. And part of it is we've stopped deliberately looking for the new. So when we're faced with a challenge or a problem, because we're out of that habit of looking for the new,
mm-hmm.
we can't find the challenge. We can't find new ideas to solve the problems. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that children, they're not afraid of falling down. If you've ever watched a child learn to ride a bike or roller skate, it looks like this. It's forward, fall, forward, fall, forward, forward, forward. And you can't go forward if you don't fall down.
True.
And the kids don't mind it. I can tell you the first time I rode a bicycle and I was on, a two-wheel bicycle, and we had just moved to this new area and I was riding a friend's bicycle or trying to, and I didn't want to tell them that I'd never really ridden before, and I rode straight into a mailbox.
Oh no.
And, dusted myself off, got up. Riding a bicycle is still one of my great joys. And it's still one of my great joys because I didn't let that first glorious failure take over my life. And so reconnecting with that inner child helps you get back up when things don't go wrong and just look at it as, okay, well, that didn't work. How do I do it differently? And as adults, we begin to fear the failure. Mm-hmm. And we stop trying because we're like, well, that might go horribly wrong. So what?
Yeah, it goes right to the negative, right? That's true.
Yeah. And kids don't have that. And so I think, like I said, I can talk for hours about the importance of creativity and creative thinking and accessing that inner child and figuring out how to reconnect with who you were in order to find joy and innovative solutions and new ideas and the courage to try them.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I would have never thought about that, to even think that there would have been a connection to it. So that was really, really eye-opening. Nice. Let's play a little fill in the blank. I will. Should I be nervous about your replies? No, bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah.
No, bring it on. Bring it on.
I mean, the real question there is, should I be nervous about the questions?
No, of course not. Of course not. No scandalous things going on here. I'm happiest when
I'm experiencing things, when I'm experiencing new things with people I love.
Oh, that's nice. What a great answer. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, me too. That was good. That was good.
Okay. It's fun to experience new things, but if you don't get around, if you don't get a chance to look around and share, and I think that's the thing that made us all so crazy during the pandemic was we were experiencing new things, but everything felt a little bit flat.
Yeah. Because it was.
Because we were by ourselves and there was no one else to look at and go, that's really funny, isn't it? Or wow, and so we found ways to cope. But yeah, just being with people and trying something new, whether it's a restaurant or a movie or an art exhibit or whatever it is, just doing it with people I enjoy doing it with.
Super. Next question. I laugh the hardest when.
Oh, I think the best laughs come, and you're going to notice that I'm very people centered. So I think the best laughs come when I'm with old friends and we are talking about the things that we did.
Yes.
And sharing the winks and the nods that you're laughing about the moment, but you're also laughing about all the other moments that you shared with those people. And that's not to say that I can't have a good laugh with new people, but there is just something about, I have these, there are 5 of us. We were in high school together, and we weren't in the same school, but we were part of a youth group. And so we got together on weekends and we have all these wonderful shared memories. And we are all over the country now, but every now and then we get on the phone or, do a Zoom call and we just laugh. We just laugh. And it's good. You need to have that in your life.
No, it's true. It's true. I love a good laugh. And when you said that, I was like, it's true being with old friends, just these cracking up moments where, tears are streaming down our faces. It's just, you're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
The new friends there's nothing wrong with a laugh with the new friend, but the old friend, it's a deep giggle. It's a chuckle, like stomach hurts. Because it's from a different time and things are different. And, and maybe we were different as well. So it really does add a little bit more humor to the situation. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I get stressed, I
walk.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will get up, I will walk away from my desk and I will go for a walk. And sometimes I can release the stress in a walk around the block, and sometimes I need a couple of miles.
Does it work always? Like when you finish, do you feel reset, refreshed, less stress?
Yeah. I mean, I will still have the stress. Sometimes I'll add to it a conversation with a friend, either in person or on the phone. But sometimes it's just the walking. It's just, and street walking is good. Okay, that's probably walking through the neighborhood is always good. But I really like if I can get, and I'm not this hiker where I've got to have these really difficult trails, but something that's got a little bit of up and down where I have to pay attention to the trail really helps. Same thing. I'll go to the gym and do a Zumba class, because in that moment, what I'm paying attention to is my feet, is where do I put my next step? And it pushes everything else away for a little bit. And the cool thing about your brain is that when you can do that, when you can take your mind off whatever it is it's stressing or working on, or a problem you can't solve, the funny thing about your brain is while you're paying attention to your feet, your brain is doing work in the background. And so when you're done paying attention to your feet, your brain has sort of come up with a solution for you. Do that. Great examples, like if you're working on a crossword puzzle, or I happen to like the Sudoku puzzles, little number things, and you get stuck.
They're popular here.
Put it down. Yeah, I think so. Imagine. But you get stuck, walk away, go do something totally different, sit back down and look at it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know the answer. And it's because your brain was doing the work in the background while you were not thinking about it at all.
That is so true. That is so true. We used to do puzzles with my grandmother. And after a while, your eyes just get worked up and just leave it. And we leave it and come back and be like, oh my gosh, Grandma, I found it. Like the piece we've been looking for forever. I found it so quickly.
Yeah, it's almost like your brain took a picture of whatever it was you were working on, and it's moving the pieces around in your head in the background. So when you came back, you knew right where it was.
Yes. That's good. It's true, though. Very, very true. One more. I'm
Okay.
hardest on myself.
I think I suffer from every the typical business owner when I compare myself to other people running similar businesses, and I think that they're further along, that they've somehow broken the code that I haven't. And I forget to step back and go, really take a look at what you've done, you know? And so sometimes I have to have somebody else slap me upside the head and say, no. I mean, yeah, they're doing great. Now take a look at what you've done and what you've accomplished. I think the comparison is the most painful.
I get it. Just putting yourself up against someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Has that something that has changed with time in your experience?
I think when you fall off the bicycle and you're getting up, you have a better view of everybody else above you. And when you're riding through life, sailing and things are all working, you're whizzing right past some of that. So I think it's that combination of, I don't think what I'm doing is working as well as I would like. And oh my goodness, look at all these other businesses that are doing better. And I don't notice them when I'm firing on all cylinders, when everything is working. I'm like, okay, I got this. And so I think that's, learning how to balance that and recognizing when it happens.
That was nicely put. Definitely. With the bicycle analogy, we love it. I'll be borrowing that. I'll be taking that.
Please do.
Yes. I wanted to ask you, if you had to represent your life with a phrase, what would it be?
I have had this on my desk in the same silly frame for, I don't know, almost 30 years. And it is, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do.
Yes.
And it's from Henry Ford, but it's always defined how I enter every situation. And it's really, I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be. I'm going to show you, and then you will know.
Yes, let's see the action in work. Let's talk more action. And a lot of people, a lot of talking today, and talk so good, just, but the action does not equal what half they're saying. So I agree. My grandmother used to always say, put the action in, let people show by your works. And that's
I like your grandmother.
She was amazing, very smart woman. Let me tell you, very, very smart, and only a 6th grade education, but she was so wise. So it's true. It's a lot of people do talking, but let the action show. You don't have to say anything.
And I think social media has amplified that. I spent a little while on Clubhouse, and I finally just got exhausted because it was filled with all these people who all were going to teach me how to run 6-figure businesses and be successful and do all these things. And everybody who was hosting a room they were all telling me how wonderful they were. And I finally got to this moment where I went, if you're all that, why are you here for 4 hours? I can see dropping in for 30 minutes, but you've been doing this for this. You're proudly telling me this room has been running for 4 hours. And that's when you really start to see, what? You're talking a good game, but you're not living it.
Yes. You have to be able to discern that, definitely, because people will fool you. They will try. They will definitely try. In closing, let me ask, I like to close with asking all of my guests, is your glass half empty or half full?
Oh, it is totally half. It's totally half full. It is. And maybe even more than a little half full. I like it. I like where I am. I like what I'm doing, and I can look back and say, yeah, it's been a good ride so far, and I got more I want to do.
That's the way to be. That is the way to be. Nice. Nice. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think if wherever you are in your journey, and this is something I did not do as much as I would like, take more breaks, take time to refresh. Unless you are a medical doctor, ain't nobody going to die if you take a day off.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Very nicely put. Yeah, we have to have a little self-care.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Absolutely.
Because if you care for yourself, then you can give to others and, really be able to do. But if you're not taking care of yourself, then, yeah, how long is it going to be before you completely are not able to do anything? So definitely taking time for yourself is definitely great advice for sure. Can you tell everyone how they can reach you if they're interested to listen to your podcast or maybe shoot out a message?
So More Than a Few Words is available wherever you listen to podcasts. So iTunes, Spotify, you name it. And you can also find it at morethanafewwords.com. The online learning, a lot of the training programs and resources that we developed when I was running the agency are now part of Digital Toolbox Club. And check it out. There's always a free webinar. There's some paid products. Drop by, say hello. And then the easiest place to connect with me really is on LinkedIn. So if you want to chat or send me a message, say hello on LinkedIn. Tell me that you heard me on Chris's podcast. So I will know that you're not just some random spammer, and I'll say hello back.
Now, because I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm not sure how it works. Can they just put in your name and they'll find you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And there may be more than one Lorraine Ball, but you'll know, number one, because you'll see in the description, podcast host, founder, Digital Toolbox. So you'll know that's me.
Okay. And I'm going to put all this information in the little blurb underneath, so they'll be able to access it there as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. You're such a great guest. I wish I could see you in person, give you a big hug.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I ever get back to Japan, I will say hello. But Chris, this has been so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. We are so glad that you could be a guest here on Glass Half Full. And we hope that we can have you back again in the future, if time permits.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. And thank you to all our listeners listening in to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform for everyone to share their life experiences. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Levens. Please subscribe, follow, and rate this podcast on Apple Music and Spotify for more learning experiences. Until next time, know you are blessed. See ya.